Oh, hello. I'm BB. Welcome back to Gosh Darn Dandy Time. Today I'm going to be talking about one of my favorite TV shows freaking ever. ER. It was on NBC from 1994 to 2009. I only got into it like in the final 2 seasons. In my junior and senior years of high school, I began watching it every Thursday night on NBC, but hey, I loved it. I mean, I grew up with it, here and there, sporadically, but for the most part, my parents watched it. I was already down for bed, and they watched it. They didn't want me to see the gory details, but at the same time, they let me watch SVU from like 1999 onwards. Seriously, Mom and Dad? What's wrong here? Oh well. So anyways, this is an opinion video of my favorite doctors, or kind of. I'm not starting with the obvious ones, or my top 5. So far I have 4 doctors on my list I'd like to talk about. Doesn't mean that they're my favorites, but I want to talk about them anyways. So let's get started. In no specific order, we'll start with... we will start with Dr. Neela Rescotra, who was, I believe... I want to say season 7 onward, but maybe she started season 6, so I can't quite remember. But ultimately, she was an interesting character. Yes, Frank made a lot of racist and anti-ethnic comments against her. He had his heart in the right place trying to make compliments, but he sucked at it. Frank? Oh. That's for another episode. Frank and Jerry will be for a separate episode. Note to self. So, Neela was a wannabe surgeon. She was an intern. She was doing her med school residency. She already done 4 or 6 years of medical school, and she was doing Chicago hospital, whatever, and she, she was kind of bland the first 2 or 3 seasons. She had a handful of episodes where she got to be the primary doctor and on the primary patient of each episode. But she was just kind of like a rotating intern and then a rotating doctor and a rotating surgery consult. She was just rotating back and forth, back and forth. Some episodes she would be there and have like 2 or 3 lines and be absolutely gone. Another episode she would just be there, add 1 line, and then she'd be gone. Other episodes, she would be there for, like, majority of the episode. She would be either Dr. A or Dr. B, but she would be there. You know, she had some very contentious relationships, friendships with Dr. Dubanko and Dr. Romano and Dr. Corday and Anspa. Yeah. Neela was kind of uneventful for a while, and then Dr. Dubanko started hitting on her, and she kind of had an on and off again flirtation with Dubanko. And later on, she was with Gallant, who she married, but then he went to fight in the Iraq War because, well, ER felt like they needed to do a war episode about the Iraq War because it was the biggest political topic of the time in the early and mid 2000s, so they felt like it. Oh, let's send one of our doctors off to the war in Iraq and kill him off. Yeah, great idea. That destroyed Neela, and then afterwards she got into a relationship with Gates, aka John Stamos. I don't like John Stamos as any character. I don't like him acting at all. But hey, that's just my opinion. If you disagree, go ahead. Do it in the comments. I don't care. Whatever. John Stamos just doesn't do anything for me. He just pisses me off, irritates me. So anyways, Neela just kind of rotated. She had a couple of love interests, a couple of relationships. She rotated, and she was just kind of a background doctor. She didn't really contribute anything to the show. They just added her to fill in. So anyways, next doctor, we're gonna do Dr. Peter Benton. He was on the show from season 1 to I think like season 9, maybe season 10. And then he disappeared right after Carter disappeared. So right after he sent Carter to Darfur, in Sudan because that was the biggest political cause going on at that time, the biggest war thing besides Iraq. Right after he sent Carter to Africa, Dr. Benton kind of disappeared from the show. Maybe he went on hiatus, maybe he was ready to hand over the surgical instruments to someone else. I don't know. Dr. Benton didn't have the greatest bedside manner, but he was still a good surgeon. He knew when to take care of medical needs. He knew when to take care of personal needs. He didn't have the greatest emotional skills, like he had a really bad temper. He could snap at people. He could lose it. Sometimes his actions kind of bothered me. I wouldn't say frightened, but he bothered me sometimes. I will admit he had one great episode to himself. It wasn't the ones about his mother or his grandmother dying or his sister getting in the way of things or his sister's brother or son getting in the way of things or even when his son Reese was born deaf and then he had custody issues with Carla or even when Carla died in a car crash. No, the episode where he was sent to a small town in Alabama or Mississippi and he was supposed to be like a substitute fill-in doctor for a small town that had a small clinic that didn't have a doctor. And it was mostly all African-American baby boomers in this town, a lot of senior citizens. It was all black. And he made a difference for one episode. And I liked that episode. I think it was called Home Sweet Home. It wasn't his home, but he was sent there anyways. I think it was very much a racially profiled episode. I wouldn't say racist, but I felt like it was aimed at specifically maybe getting black people interested in watching ER. I'm not quite sure, but it always felt like that to me. I'm white, so what do I know? So anyways, our next doctor on the list would be... oh, by the way, Dr. Neela Rescotra was played by Parimandir Nagra, who played the role of Jess in Bend It Like Beckham, that British comedy drama. It was okay. I like the songs in it. That's it. And Dr. Peter Benton was played by Eric LaSalle. So, next doctor on the list is Dr. Luka Kovac, the tall, dark, handsome, mysterious doctor who came around season 10, season 11. His story was that he was Bosnian. No, he was Croatian. And Frank would occasionally call him a croak or a Croat because he couldn't say Croatia correctly. Oh, wow. He was an interesting doctor. He had a lot of woes and depression. He struggled with the past. He let the past torment him. I believe he had PTSD because his wife and baby son died in a plane crash and he survived, but they didn't. He always was beating himself up too much. I remember there was one episode, it was kind of like ER was trying to do their own version of the Breakfast Club, where they had like all the main doctors in a Saturday detention class. Seriously, all on their same common off day. Like, that was so unrealistic. They had to go into this old classroom that looked like a lecture hall from the 1910s, all this mahogany wood in there. And it was essentially ER does the Breakfast Club situation for a whole episode, and it was just weird. Anyways, he married Dr. Abby Lockhart later, who was played by Maura Tierney. Dr. Kovac was played by Goran Visnik. And I was going to do an excerpt on Dr. Banfield, played by Angela Bassett, but she was in one season, so maybe later. So anyways, I'll talk about Dr. Banfield, Dr. Abby Lockhart, a little bit more of Dr. Kovac in part 2. So, yeah, stick around, people, for part 2. Don't forget to click that like, subscribe, and please comment. Adios.